Hey kids, good morning. How are you all? Hope you all are safe and good. Now, let's move on to our next session in English. Our next topic will be the three questions written by Leo Tolstoy. Leo Tolstoy is a Russian writer. He lived from 1828 to 1910. He was a very famous writer, and the few of his collections are which are written by him. It is War and Peace, Anna Karenina, The Death of Ivan Ilyich, and A Confession. These are only few of his collections, and he wrote many. And we are going to see the three questions from his creations. The first session we will read together, and side by side I'll explain. There was a king who had three questions in his mind that if we always knew the right time to begin everything, if we know who were the right people to listen to and whom to avoid, and above all, if we always know what was the most important thing to do, he would never fail in anything he might undertake. It means there was once a king who had three questions in his mind. What was the question is, first one, he has to know the right time to begin everything. The second question, he wants to know who is the right people to listen to and whom to avoid. And the what is the most important thing he should do, and because of that he will never fail in anything he do. These are the three questions. And the thought having occurred to him, he had it proclaimed throughout his kingdom that he would give a great reward to anyone who would teach him what was the right time for every action and who were the most necessary people and how he might know what was the most important thing to do. So as soon as he got this question, he passed it throughout the kingdom and announced for the reward who was answering all his questions. Learned men came to the king, but they all answered his questions differently. So all the learned men, they came to the king. But what had happened? Everyone has different answers for this question. In reply to the first question, some said that to know the right time for every action, one must draw up in advance a table of days, months, and years, and must live strictly according to it. Only thus, said they, could everything be done at its proper time. So what is the solution for the first question? It came out is, he should have a table of days, month, and everything properly, and he should follow everything strictly in order to get all those things right. Others declared that it was impossible to decide beforehand the right time for every action, but that not letting oneself be observed in the idle pastimes, one should always attend to all that was going on and then do what was most needful. So what others suggested it, we cannot decide the right time for every action, and we should face everything we are undergoing, and also one should be adapted to the situation and then do what was most needful. Others again said that however attentive the king might be to what was going on, it was impossible for one man to decide correctly the right time for every action, but that he should have a council of wise men who would help him to fix the proper time for everything. So what one more suggestion came, whatever it is, a man cannot decide correctly the right time for every action, but he can have a council of wise men who could do everything to fix the proper time for everything. But then again others said there were some things which could not wait to be laid before a council, but about which one had at once to decide whether to undertake them or not. So what was the other suggestion? We cannot wait for the council members to decide everything, right? So we cannot wait for them to decide whether to undertake them or not. This was one more suggestion. But in order to decide that, one must know beforehand what was going to happen. It is only magicians who know that. And therefore, in order to know the right time for every action, one must consult magician. So here comes the other suggestion. One must go to the magicians to know what is going to happen next, because they know the right time, they are saying. So one must consult the magician. Equally various were the answers to the second question. Some people said the king the most needed were his counselors, others the priest, others the doctors, while some said the warriors were the most necessary. So similarly for the second and third question also, they have various answers. So who was the most important person was the second question, right? So some said counselors. Counselors means those who give suggestions. They are the important persons, they said. Others said the priest is important, while some others said doctors are important, while some others said the warriors were the most important persons. To the third question as to what was the most important occupation, some replied the most important thing in the world was science. Others said it was the skill of warfare, and others again that was religious worship. So when it comes to the third question, again he got so many suggestions. Some said science is important, others said warfare is important, and others said about the religious worship. All the answers being different, the king agreed with none of them and gave the reward to none. But still wishing to find the right answer to his question, he decided to consult a hermit widely renowned for his wisdom. So every answer was different, right? So he was not agreeing to anything and he did not reward anyone. Finally, he decided to meet a hermit who was very much known for his wisdom. The hermit lived in a wood which he never quitted, and he received none but common folk. So the king put on simple clothes and, before reaching the hermit's cell, dismounted from his horse, leaving his bodyguard behind. He went on alone. So this hermit, he lived in a wood and he doesn't know any of the big people. He know only the common folks who was living in the village. So the king wore his normal clothes and he got down from his horse and he left all the bodyguards behind and he left alone to meet the hermit. When the king approached, the hermit was digging the ground in front of his hut. Seeing the king, he greeted him and went on digging. The hermit was frail and weak, and each time he struck his spade into the ground and turned a little earth, he breathed heavily. So when the king went to the hermit, what was he doing? He was digging the ground which was in front of his hut. So seeing him, the king, what did the hermit do? He greeted him first, and the hermit was very weak, and every time he struck the ground, he was breathing very heavily. The king went up to him and said, I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you the answer for 3 questions. How can I learn what to do the right thing at the right time? Who are the people I most need? And to whom should I therefore pay more attention than to the rest? And what affairs are the most important and need my first attention? So he came to the hermit and he started asking us 3 questions. How do I learn to do the right things at the right time? Who are the most important person? And what is the most important work I should do? The hermit listened to the king but answered nothing. He just pat on his head and recommenced digging. You are tired, said the king. Let me take the spade and work a while for you. Thanks, said the hermit, and giving the spade to the king, he sat on to the ground. So, the hermit did not say anything. He started digging. So, what did the king say? You are tired? Let me do it for you. So, the hermit said, thanks, and gave the spade to the king, and he sat on the ground. When he dug 2 beds, the king stopped and repeated his question. The hermit again gave no answer, but rose, stretched out his hand for the spade, and said, "Now rest a while, and let me work a bit." So again, after digging two bits, what did the king do? He stopped and he repeated the question to the hermit. But this time the hermit got up and he stretched the hand for the spade and asked the king to rest for a while and came near. But the king did not give him the spade and continued to dig. 1 hour passed and another. The sun began to sink behind the trees, and the king at last stuck the spade into the ground and said, so what had happened? The king continued to do the work. 1 hour passed, 2 hours passed. The sun even started to sink behind the trees. At last, what did the king do? He stuck the spade in the ground and said, I came to you, wise men, for an answer to my questions. If you can give me none, tell me so, and I will return home. Here comes someone running, said the hermit. Let us see who it is. So the king asked, I came here to get the answer from you, and if you can't give me the answer, tell me, I will return to my home, he said. So someone came there running, the hermit said. Let us see who it is. Let us see who it is in the next session. Now, finish up the glossaries of the session, write it twice, and submit the assignment to me as soon as possible. I will meet you in the next session. Thank you. Bye.